Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is well and that your families are safe and healthy and doing well. Just want to say before we get started that just appreciate, all the work and coverage, this off season to cover us in the off season. Just appreciate you guys keeping Colts fans up to speed on all the latest preparations by our team, for our team, everything about the Colts and what's going on. We appreciate that, especially in the environment that we're in. Um, we're excited about the coming season, really excited. We think we have a really good team where we think it's going to be a season that Colts fans can be proud of. So thank you for your help in that. To start off, I want to take us back. I want to just take us back for a second to our team meetings. And I'm not talking about last week. I'm actually talking about prior to the George Floyd tragedy. And we were having a series of team meetings on the subject of identity. And we spent a lot of time talking about what identity is, what it's all about. We talked about personal identity and we talked about team identity. And I don't very often show PowerPoints in team meetings, but I showed a PowerPoint and I pulled two slides that I thought would be helpful. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I want to show you two slides that we showed in our team meeting. Again, this was prior to all the most recent incidences. So let me share my screen here with you. All right. So like I said, we talked about identity, and I'm going to be brief right here, but we talked about identity and what's the definition of identity. And we said, identity is basically the summation of your values, your habits, your beliefs, and kind of those central stories to your life that helped shape you and define you. Sum all those things up, and that's kind of who we are. We have a quote in our locker room that says, no man becomes suddenly different from his habits and cherished thoughts. It's really significant to us. It says a lot. It says a lot about identity, personal identity. It says a lot about our team identity. This really, we know how this plays out in football, right? I mean, it's the guys who make the big plays on Sunday are most oftentimes the guys who are making big plays during the week. The guys who are giving second effort and doing the little things to help us win are doing those things every day in practice. Their habits, their cherished thoughts, their beliefs that we have about each other and about the way we do things. But obviously, in light of the circumstances, we can see that, and I've learned, and I think we've all learned, that this is true not only on the football field, it's true off the field, on how we deal with family, life, community. This statement really bears true. This statement's been on my desk since I've been 23 years old. So we talked about that and the importance of that. But, in talking about personal identity and team identity, we asked the question, how do they go together? Should they coexist? Can they coexist? And of course, our answer was a resounding yes, that actually personal identity and team identity must coexist in order for both to fulfill their potential. The individual has to flourish and the team will flourish. That happens together. Yes, there are sacrifices that we must make as individuals for the team, but also the team embraces the individual identity and personalities of the players. And that's very important to us. And so since they go together, then what's the model? What's the framework? So this is the last slide that I'll show you. We had several more in our team presentation, but here's the last one I'll show you for now. Okay, here's the model. Here's how we think it relates. Okay, we talked about individual identity. We talked about team identity. And what pulls those two things together, this is like a funnel now. This is like a funnel. It's kind of going down in centers. It centers on the mission. So go back to a few weeks ago prior to the George Floyd tragedy. In our team meeting, as we're talking about this, the summation of this very briefly is, hey, we actually took our players through an individual identity exercise. It was informal, but we asked them, hey, what do you say? What's true about you? What is your individual identity? And it was interesting to see the things that came out, a lot of common things. There were some different things. But the one common concept that came through loud and clear, this word was not used, but as a few of us sat down at the end and summarized it and then talked about it as a team, the word that kind of intersected, that captured really as a football team, what we were thinking about was kind of the warrior spirit. That's what kind of united us as individuals, this warrior spirit. And the warrior spirit, right, it's the struggle of the battle and the fight to win. And so, you know, as a football team, it was very easy to see this and relate to this. And then we related that to our team identity. And we talked about our core values: trust, toughness, team. We talked about the process, 1% better. We talked about our goals, winning championships, and we talked about those things. And we talked about, when we talked about our mission, we talked about, you know, our mission as a football team and as players is really, our mindset is compete and win, compete and win. That was our team meeting a month ago or whenever it was. So fast forward to the incidents, the most recent incidents, and then our team meetings last week. We took the better part of 7 hours plus over 3 days to talk about what was going on in the world, talking about how that affected us, you know, as a team. And here's what happened. Here's what happened. As we began to, as players began to share stories, particularly the players in our Black community shared stories of hardship, of personal and family hardship, real stories. I mean, real stories. Stories about the struggles of being in the Black community, and obviously in the context of me speaking to men about being a Black man. You know, and I just want to make one reference or one comment about the term Black man. It's a unique phrase in our culture, one that I think I embrace and see what I've learned, I should say, what I've learned from talking to our team and from other friends of mine is that the uniqueness of that term, Black man, comes from a long and consistent fight against injustice. That the term Black man really has been a unifying term that Black men take much pride in and should. And that term has been birthed out of fighting injustice for so many years. And there's a real strength and pride in that term, one that I honor and I respect and I've grown to understand. And so as we listen to these stories, all I can tell you in our team meeting, it was moving. Our hearts were stirred in a very deep way, in a very, very deep way. I'll just give you two brief examples. One story was of a very well-known player on our team. And these stories were of the past, but they were stories also of time in the NFL, time in Indianapolis. And I'm not going to be able to do justice to these stories, okay? I'll just say that at the outset. And it was and I'll say this, it was the accumulation of these stories that really was alarming. And we know that we were just scratching the surface. But one story was of one of our players walking into a well-known store here in Indianapolis and walking in and seeing the person at the cash register. It just became very obvious, hit a button to call security for just walking in the store. And there's more to that story, and I'm not going to go into the details. All I'm going to tell you is at the time of this story and an accumulation of it, there wasn't a dry eye on the call. There was not one dry eye on the Zoom call. Another story. This is a story from a player, from a white player. This is also a well-known player who has a reputation for being a very good player, strong player, tough player, and a player who is a great teammate. Not a good teammate, he's a great teammate. And you know that on the field, this guy's got your back. And his story was, it was very, very moving. It moves me to even think about it because he said, I've always had your back on the field, but really as a result of what he was hearing, I want to have your back off the field, and I will have your back off the field. I feel that same way. So I think what happened is that we went, so on the individual level, we heard these stories, but then as you go to the team identity, what that did was that drew us, there became a closer personal intimacy as team members. then as we get closer as individuals, that's going to affect how we are as a team. There's going to be a closeness and a bond to the team that I trust and is going to just grow as a result of what we went through last week as a team. And here's one thing, and we talk about family, and the Ursays make no bones about it. This is a family business. The concept of family is incredibly important to the Ursays, and we want there to be a family environment here. Well, if your family is like my family, when one person in my family has an issue, we all have an issue. If one family member is carrying a burden, then we all carry that burden. And that's the way we feel. That's the way I feel, that this just isn't an issue for the Black community. This is our issue. That's as an organization. And we really want to embrace that and do our part. And then the third and last part of that is the mission part, how it pulls it all together. You know, the Colts have, and I'm proud of our organizational mission statement. It's incredible to entertain, inspire, and unite by winning the right way. And by winning the right way is key right there. As a football team, we talk about compete and win, but the winning the right way is very important. You know, this issue has not only become our issue, this issue becomes our mission. You know, and it's our mission in this city, in this state, and it's really our mission in this nation. And we want to be about helping fulfill the vision for those in the Black community of what it should look like to be a member of the Black community. It'll involve dealing with systemic racism, doing our part to deal with that. It'll involve police brutality on the Black community, dealing with that. It's going to involve presenting and creating economic opportunities and how voting can be equally accessible for everyone. Those are just starters. And we spent a lot of time talking about it, but one thing that our players made crystal clear, it can't just be talk. There's got to be action, and we are going to act as a team, as an organization, and excited to do so. And I just want to close kind of the opening comments here by just saying, I really believe that the whole human race, we've been given the title that we've all been made in the image of God. We've all got this great title. We're all made in the image of God. But with a great title becomes a great responsibility. And our responsibility as human beings is to give dignity and respect to everyone made in the image of God. And not only to give it, but to cultivate it and to multiply it and to make it grow. That's personally what I want to do. That's what we're going to do as a team. We're not going to be passive. We're going to make it grow. And we're going to do it in small ways. We're going to do it in big ways. We're going to do it in quiet ways where nobody knows what's going on, but we'll also do it in the spotlight and the platform of which we have as being an NFL team and NFL players. And so I just hope and pray that there's many out there listening that feel the same and that want to join in that mission of let's make this thing grow. Let's make a difference in those areas and help fulfill that vision. Okay, I'll open it up to questions.
All right, Joel Erickson.
Frank, when we talked to you last week, you weren't sure what you were going to do with the meetings last week. What led you to push football aside and focus on the issue of race?
Yeah, appreciate that question because I care, we care, our organization cares, our leadership cares, Irsay family, Chris Ballard, myself, leadership. We care about our players. So that's primary. There's also the philosophy and understanding that I believe that you can't separate the player and the person. I mean, if any one of us, if anyone listening were to had an incredible burden on your heart, just imagine what's one of the heaviest burdens that you could bear. And now you go to work. How are you going to be at work? You're probably not going to be all there. And so we decided to hit the pause button. You know, we're at that time of year where we could do that, deal with the issue, talk about it, so we could grow and learn. And I wanted to learn. I knew our team could learn and understand from this issue. And part of not being passive is first understanding how to think about it. And so that's why we did that.
Okay, Stephen Holder.
Hey, Frank, just a quick football question. I don't think we'll talk to you for a little bit. as this offseason, your roster's changed a lot. As you look ahead, I know you haven't seen them on the field yet, but just in terms of depth, from where you started when you got here and the way you've seen the team evolve since then, just how has the depth of your team maybe changed and improved, do you think?
I think each year it's gotten deeper and stronger. It's really a credit to Chris and his staff and really everyone. I mean, I think the vision becomes clearer and clearer. The core leadership in our locker room gets clearer. I think it's an ongoing process where, there starts with a clear vision, but it gets stronger. And I think that's what's happening. I think we've gotten traction. I think early on we said, hey, we're going to build from the inside out. Character is going to be important. And then you see this, you feel and the success that we have with that. We know it's true, but there's nothing like feeling it and doing it. And that just strengthens your convictions. And so we continue to try to sign players as free agents and draft players that will help us along that path.
Zach Kiefer.
Hey, Frank.
Exactly.
Another football question. I'm curious to get your thoughts on how your QB room has evolved over the last couple of months. There's been a lot of change. I know you're in a lot of those meetings, probably not all of them, but you add Phillip and Jacoby has a different role, and that had to be difficult for him. And I'm curious how those two have come to work with each other. And then you add Jacob, who's young and talented, and you've also got Chad. So it's a very interesting room right now. There's a lot of different skill sets. I'm curious to see how that room has evolved, both those guys getting along and then how they've developed in terms of football stuff.
It's been great. It's a great room. Most often, I mean, I hop in all the rooms, hop in each position room from here and there, but I'm in the quarterback room more than any other room. And it's a dynamic room. There's, relationships take time to build. So Phillip's new to the equation and Jacob's new to the equation. But because Phillip has 16, 17 years of experience, it doesn't take long to see and feel his presence. And Jacoby's been a complete pro. And those two, it's like they've been together for a while. I mean, both from NC State, both went to NC State. I don't know, they both play. There's a brotherhood amongst quarterbacks.
You think that was hard for Jacoby, if you don't mind me butting in? I mean,
yeah, I do think it was hard.
How did he handle that?
Just like you guys know he would. I mean, he's a pro, and he wants to do what's right for the team. And he knows. He and I have had multiple conversations, about that. But Jacoby doesn't need me to tell him what to do. He knows what to do. I'm his friend and I'm his coach, so I tried it, and I've been in his position to some degree. So, do I try to lend an encouraging voice every now and then? Yeah, but he's doing it the right way. We need him to be who he is this year for us to get where we want to go. Whether that means he ends up playing some games or playing a number of plays, or even if he's just there to support Phillip and his team, Jacoby will be a big part of our success.
Kevin Bowen.
Hey, Frank, appreciate your time all spring and your candor. I think a few weeks ago, and I'm paraphrasing here, you mentioned how you feel even better about Phillip and the move you guys made. I guess, what are you seeing specifically virtually that makes you feel like, wow, this is even better than I thought it would be?
The interaction with the team virtually, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, but that's what we have. And you just know it because Phillip at his core, I said this early on in the process, Phillip at his core, as much as anything, is a great teammate. He's a great teammate. And that's in his circle of personal identity, it's great teammate is way, way up there. And that just comes out. It's just going to come out, and it's going to come out further when we get together. So, and then you just see the command that he has. I mean, I've mentioned this to you guys. He's got such command on football, on the subject of football and X's and O's and the little nuances of what it takes to be great. And not only the schematic expertise, but the game within the game expertise. This guy is brilliant, but he's not just brilliant smart. He's tough. There's countless stories about his physical toughness and his mental toughness. So really excited to have Philip.
And just a quick follow-up, do you feel like it's even more important this offseason for Philip to get with guys on his own during the summer, considering just the lack of in-person stuff you guys have done?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And I know he's doing that. I mean, he's here now. He's in Indy now. The move is, he's moved here to Indy. His family's all 9 children. They're all here. They're swimming in pools in Indianapolis and making new friends and, really, looking forward to being part of the Indianapolis community. And I know he's already calling guys to throw.
Okay, George Bremer.
Coach, thanks for your time. I know this would normally be the time of year where you're talking to guys about responsibility and about making sure they're doing the right things while they're away before they come back for training camp. Is it different with the social distancing and everything this year? Is it more a message of just keep doing what you've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of, keep doing what you're doing, always follow the direction we're getting from the medical experts on that kind of stuff. Be conscious of that. Don't think you're invincible. Nobody's invincible, and right, especially our guys tend to think they're invincible because their physical presence and strength. So don't think you're invincible. Be smart, but also you have to be very intentional, very intentional in the environment we're in. So, and as far as working out and the things you do there, since we didn't have this time together, I know our players have done a really good job of staying on point with the direction that we've given them, but we need to continue that through. We start week 1 in Jacksonville. It's going to be hot. We better be in shape.
Okay, Mike Wells.
Hey, Frank, echo everybody else, thank you for what you've done this offseason for us. Talking to players, they've always talked about how you're able to rally guys together, whether it's, the 1-5 start or Andrew retiring or injuries. How challenging was this offseason for you, or was it challenging at all when you think about the virtual offseason program, the George Floyd situation from a head coaching standpoint to keep your guys tied in and focused and making sure they had their sights in the right places?
Well, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's never easy, but what makes it exciting and makes the challenge exciting is the organization, having the support of the organization, including Chris Ballard and I kind of being lockstep in everything that we do. But then really more importantly, it's the leadership of our players. So, how do you overcome adversity? I mean, I can promise you, it's not any one speech. I mean, sometimes we give long speeches like today, whatever. I mean, there's a time and a place, and sometimes it's the right time, sometimes it's not. But in the course of when you go through things, we'll talk about things, but it's not the speeches, it's the action. But the dialogue is important, and the dialogue from our players is important on how we're going to respond to it, whether it's a 1-5 start or it's what we're going through right now, or whether it's the COVID thing. The dialogue and participation of the players is really central and important.
Andrew Walker.
Hey, Coach. We've since heard from other players and coaches and Chris Ballard who all talked about the emotions involved last week. And also you alluded to some of those stories. Whether it's the emotion, the stories that were told, maybe guests or players, what maybe down the road, what are some of the things you think you'll remember? And obviously this is still a living, breathing thing, but what are some of the things you'll remember from those meetings specifically?
Man, a couple things. That's a really good question. I'll remember the accumulation of all the stories, that it wasn't just one story, and it was heartfelt, the response of all the players. I'll remember some of the things I've learned and grown from. I'll remember one of the things I said to Mr. Irsay when Chris and I had a conversation with Mr. Irsay at the end of last week, and he cares very much and was asking us, about the week. And one of the things I said to Mr. Irsay was, when he was asking us about the meetings, I said, Mr. Irsay, I really think that I speak for the team in saying this will be a week that this team will never forget. That there are things that happen this week that we'll never forget. That there is a closeness and how we got to know each other that we'll never forget. So I'll remember that. I'll never forget this week. I'll never forget last week, ever. I think I'll remember, and our players remember, Coach Dungy coming in on the last day. I thought it would be appropriate to have somebody kind of come in, someone other than myself, and address the team. And Coach Dungy came in, and in only the ways that Coach Dungy can do, did he address the issue and address it with our team. I think our players will remember what Coach Dungy said. So those were a few of the things.
All right, Mike Chappell.
Yeah, Coach, real quick, I realize everything is subject to change, but on your calendar, I mean, isn't this the last week for vets? And then maybe next week is rookies. But on your calendar is like July 28th when you guys get back together, or how are you approaching the rest moving forward?
Yeah, so here's the calendar. Obviously, this is all subject to change, but I'll give you guys what I have. This is our last week of OTAs, so Zoom OTAs, so to speak. We are, and then the next week, I believe the players are doing something to get together on their own, but that's what I'm hearing, to do some things and work out some stuff, and not only on a smaller scale but on a bigger scale. But I don't know how that's going to play out. So they're working on a couple things. But I also left I'm going to leave a 2-week window after this week for position coaches to have one-on-one Zoom meetings with young players. So even though we're finished, as there will be no more team meetings, there will still be some positional meetings for 2 more weeks after this week, just on an as-needed basis, more so with the focus on the young guys. And then July 22nd is the tentative start date for our rookies to report to camp. And then, Chap, as you said, July 28th is the tentative report date for the vets.
All right, Stephen Holder.
Frank, last week we talked to Coach Baker for the first time, and I thought it was kind of interesting. He was talking about coming back from college after all those years, and he's been in the league for a very long time, and I'm sure has a huge reputation in the NFL. I guess what my question is, when he became a strong candidate for this job, what questions did that pose for you? The fact that he had been out of the league for a long time, and he actually sees it as a benefit, and that he learned from that experience in college and will bring some of that with him. Just how did you see it, and what were your thoughts?
I cannot tell you how excited I am to have Bake on the staff. Obviously, he and I go way back. We were in the same class at the University of Maryland, so we know each other very well, very deep roots together. When I was kind of a head coaching candidate, every head coaching candidate has a list of potential coaches he wants on his staff. Brian Baker was always my number one guy for D-line. I played with him. I know who he is as a man, as a coach. I know his passion for people. I know his passion for the game. I know how he's an excellent communicator and teacher. He's phenomenal on fundamentals and technique. When we brought him in to interview him, he had worked with Flus in Dallas. I mean, it was just an incredible opportunity to get Bake on the staff. So it was a perfect fit. I'm very excited to have him.
Hey, a couple more. Phil B.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Phil.
You want to get into the building and work with the coaches here sometime soon, I take it, or that's
not really.
Well, it's not as much of you say that it's not as much of a priority because you're in a rhythm. What you're doing, right?
Yeah, we are in a rhythm. With only really 1 more week of team stuff going. Some guys have been in, a few guys have been in, and we'll be in and out this week. But really putting the emphasis on staying in the same rhythm. Really, what guys are going in for is more to kind of make sure they got everything for the summer. Any last notes or things they need to bring with them for getting away for a few weeks. That's really been the focus. But so we'll be in and out a little bit, but we're mostly staying the same rhythm.
All right. Well, here's the question I wanted to ask you is just, you guys have had to adjust on the fly all through off season. Everybody has. Your mindset right now is on when there's going to be a preseason, maybe when games are scheduled, what you're going to do, and then maybe that changes again. How much have you had to continually reiterate to everyone that, hey, it's not easy, but you got to be flexible. You got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to adapt, and no matter what happens.
Good question. So here's been the approach. The whole off season has been it's going to be a normal off season. We're going to start April 20th. Okay, well, we did start April 20th. We couldn't be together, but we had a plan to start April 20th, and we started April 20th. Our plan is to, start the regular, that hey, we're going to start training camp on time. We're going to play 4 preseason games, and then we're starting week 1 against Jacksonville. So be ready for that. Let's not be caught by surprise by what is normal, because right now what is normal is everything that's not normal. So let's not be surprised and caught off guard if all of a sudden the NFL says, hey, we're on. By the way, we're on. If we need to, and then the last thing I would say about that, Phil, is, as the head coach, the only thing I do is I assure the guys that we have made a plan for every contingency that we can possibly think of that the NFL will bring us. Chris and I sit down and talk about this stuff day and night. I sit and talk about it and plan it with the coaches, particularly the coordinators, how we're going to install, what we're going to do, all those things. And so the players need to trust us, and I think they do trust us, that whatever we have to do to adjust as leadership, we'll do. We need to trust them that they're going to be ready mentally and physically, and we do trust them.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, last question here, Mike Wells.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned earlier about Tony Dungy talking. You had Doc Rivers and Ray Allen also speak to the team this earlier this offseason. What was your reason behind having these people come in and speak to the team?
Just to hear, these guys are winners. These guys are winners. These guys are warriors. These guys are warriors. These guys who have overcome struggles. They fight to win. They've won championships. They've done it the right way. They've done it the right way. Those are all things that are part of our vision and what we aspire to do. And I just think it's helpful to hear their perspective. These are all very accomplished men, all very more accomplished than I am. And so just an opportunity for guys to hear men that I know that they respect. I know they respect the career of these 3 guys that we've had in here. These guys have had monster careers as players and coaches. And so to hear from them, I really think energized us, was really a highlight. It was really a highlight. Those 3 guys were really a highlight to this offseason. I know our players won't forget those messages.
Was there anybody else other than those 3 that we didn't hear about?
No.